The studio lights burned hot, casting a stark glow over the sleek set of Voice of America, a late-night political talk show broadcast from Seattle on the American View Network. The audience, a mix of locals and political enthusiasts, sat in hushed anticipation, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of their phones. The air crackled with expectation. Tonight's episode promised a clash of titans. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a rising star known for her fiery rhetoric and unapologetic stance on systemic inequality, versus Candace Owens, a commentator whose calm, incisive arguments had made her a polarizing figure. The topic, race in America, criminal justice, and partisan politics, was a familiar battleground. But everyone knew this wasn't about the issues alone. It was about control. Jasmine Crockett sat poised in her chair, her deep cobalt blue suit a deliberate choice, commanding attention like a flag planted on a hill. Her posture was precise, every movement calculated, her eyes scanning the room with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a debate. Across from her, Candace Owens sat with her legs crossed, a faint smile playing on her lips, her gaze steady and probing. She wore a tailored black blazer, understated yet sharp, like a blade hidden in plain sight. The host, Brown James, a seasoned journalist with a knack for steering chaos, adjusted his notes and leaned into the microphone. "Welcome to Voice of America," Brown began, his voice smooth but firm. "Tonight, we're diving into one of the most pressing issues facing our nation: race, criminal justice, and the political divide. Congresswoman Crockett, you've spoken forcefully about inequality in the justice system. Critics, like Candace, argue the system works fine, and race is too often used as an excuse. Your thoughts?" Jasmine didn't flinch. Her voice was low, steady, and deliberate. "The issue isn't that race is mentioned too much. It's that it's ignored until someone pays with their life. Black Americans are disproportionately incarcerated, brutalized, and killed by a system that claims neutrality but operates with bias. I've seen it firsthand. Families torn apart, lives discarded. Ignoring that reality doesn't fix it. It buries it." Candace's smile didn't waver, but it wasn't warm. It was a signal, a warning shot. "Congresswoman, I think it's dangerous when politicians push a victimhood mentality," she said, her tone calm but cutting. "The idea that every bad thing happening to Black Americans stems from racism isn't just dishonest. It's disempowering. I'm living proof you can rise without leaning on that narrative. The data backs me up. More Black millionaires than ever. Black voices dominating entertainment, culture, even politics. Victimhood has become a currency, and it's holding people back." A few nods rippled through the audience, subtle but noticeable. Jasmine leaned forward slightly, her jaw tightening for a fraction of a second. "You believe systemic racism is exaggerated, Candace," she said, her voice steady but laced with challenge. "But the numbers don't lie. Black Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white Americans. That's not victimhood. That's math." Candace's eyes gleamed, as if she'd been waiting for this. "Absolutely. The data doesn't lie," she replied. "But let's talk about what the data doesn't say. Last night, I read a public filing that tells a different story." She paused, not for drama, but to let the weight of her words settle. "A police brutality lawsuit in Dallas when you were a public defender, Congresswoman." Jasmine's smile froze. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her laugh loud but hollow. "I don't know what you're talking about." Candace didn't blink. She reached into a slim folder beside her and pulled out a neatly folded document. "Filed at the Dallas DA's office," she said, her voice even. "You represented a black man beaten by police. You convinced him to take a low settlement instead of going to trial. You didn't just file. You wanted it over quickly. Am I wrong?" The studio went silent. Brown James shifted in his seat, his discomfort palpable. "Let's keep things respectful," he interjected, but Jasmine cut in, her voice still calm but edged with steel. "This is respectful. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm asking how someone can spend years fighting for justice when she herself helped the system skate." The camera crew felt the shift. The producers felt it. Viewers at home stopped scrolling. Jasmine's jaw tightened again, just enough for the cameras to catch. "That's in the past," she said finally. "I was a young attorney then. I did what I thought was right." "That's exactly the point," Candace said, her voice softer now, almost gentle, but no less piercing. "You did what you thought was right because you saw the system's flaws. You saw your client beaten, scared, targeted, and you got him a settlement by acknowledging the injustice. But now you tell people that same system is fair. That's not growth, Congresswoman. That's contradiction." The audience murmured, a low hum that vibrated through the studio. Brown James glanced at the producers, then tried to steer the conversation. "Maybe we should focus on current policy." Candace didn't let him finish. "We're talking about current policy because of past patterns," she said, her voice firm but not loud. "We can't discuss justice if we pretend the past didn't happen. That includes her past." Jasmine exhaled sharply, as if the air had been forced out of her. "You don't know me," she said, her voice louder now. "I know what you've said," Candace replied, "and that's enough." Jasmine sat up straighter, her tone rising. "You're twisting everything. People grow. My views have changed. I've learned that too many lean on victimhood to make a living, and that holds back entire communities." Candace didn't flinch. "You didn't overcome injustice by denying it. You grew from it. You used that experience to build a career. And now, instead of helping young people stand up against injustice, you tell them they're imagining things that once made you act." The statement landed like a thunderclap. Jasmine gave a dry laugh, but it lacked conviction. "You're trying to paint me as a hypocrite just because I don't go around angry about what happened," she said. "No," Candace replied, her voice calm but unyielding. "I'm showing people your story isn't what you claim. You benefited from the very system you now call fair." She turned to the audience, her gaze piercing the cameras. "Here's the reality. Injustice doesn't end just because Jasmine Crockett became a congresswoman. Pretending it doesn't exist doesn't help those still trying to graduate without discrimination, get a job without changing their name on a resume, or survive a police stop." A panelist, a former Washington state senator, cleared their throat, visibly uneasy. "Maybe we should move to discussing solutions," they suggested. But the stage lights hadn't shifted. Jasmine tried again. "You think you're helping people by making them feel like victims? I'm helping them seize their power." Candace's voice stayed level. "No, you're helping them forget the cost of that power. You tell them to stop complaining. But you once spoke out for justice. You were right to do so. But you forgot how it felt the moment you held the mic." Brown James tried to cut to commercial, but his hesitation betrayed him. The audience couldn't look away. Jasmine's reputation was built on control, tight, forceful, unflappable. But tonight, the rhythm was off. Candace didn't shout her down or mock her. She stood on solid ground and pointed out the cracks in Jasmine's narrative. Jasmine reached for a statistic, one she'd memorized 100 times. Black Americans make up just 13% of the population, but commit over 50% of violent crimes. That's not emotion. That's FBI data. Candace's head turned slowly, her voice carrying a hint of ice. Are you serious? Throwing out selective crime stats like they're absolute truth? She leaned back in her chair. Police aren't neutral. Surveillance isn't neutral. Do you know how many crimes go unreported in wealthy white suburbs because they're handled quietly? But every incident in a poor black neighborhood is documented, arrested, prosecuted. You've read the same reports I have. Jasmine's voice sharpened. You can't justify violence just because it happens in a certain area. Nobody's justifying anything, Candace said, leaning forward. I'm saying the system doesn't treat everyone equally, and you of all people should understand that. You lived it as a young attorney. For the first time, Jasmine looked rattled, her eyes flicking to Brown James, who offered no rescue. She switched tactics. You know what's exhausting? Being told I'm not qualified to be a congresswoman, that I'm betraying my community just because I don't blame everything on injustice? Candace cut in. Nobody's calling you a traitor. I'm calling you dishonest. There's a difference. Jasmine crossed her arms, her laugh scornful. I'm not selling anything. What about you? Books, podcasts, paid speeches? You're selling a brand, and that brand requires you to pretend you never settled that lawsuit, never needed help, never got hurt. Candace's response was flat, unyielding. Let's finish this point, because it matters. The room quieted again. Every time you tell a black kid they're making excuses, you're ignoring that you once needed someone to believe you, to take your client's fears seriously, to act on his behalf. Now you tell people doing that is weak. Jasmine didn't respond immediately. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Then she tried a dodge. At least I'm not crying on TV for sympathy, she said, her voice sharp. Candace laughed, not mocking, but the kind of laugh that signaled someone had run out of substance. I've never asked for sympathy, she said. Just accountability. But if that's too heavy for you, I can carry it myself. Jasmine smoothed her dress, turning to the camera as if reclaiming her stage. I think we're seeing performative politics right now. Candace cares more about going viral than being honest. Candace didn't move, her hand resting lightly on her thigh. You keep saying I'm performing, but tonight I'm just asking the questions you're afraid to answer. No spin, no slogans, just the truth. Jasmine smirked, disdainful. The truth is, people like you need injustice to keep your career going. Candace looked at Brown James, then the audience, her voice low but resonant. Let me be clear. I didn't get elected by telling people they're victims. I got elected by saying they deserve better and fighting like hell to make sure they get it. Jasmine jumped in, louder. No, you got elected by selling fear and division. And then the moment arrived. Candace looked at her, not angry, not smug, just calm. You can't rewrite history just because the cameras are rolling. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The studio froze. Jasmine's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she had no ready response. Candace leaned in slightly. You convinced that client to take the settlement because you were scared, because you were young because he was black and targeted, and that was real. His experience mattered then, and it still does. But pretending it never happened, pretending you didn't help the system, that's not strength. That's survival dressed up as denial. Jasmine tried to pivot. So now I'm not allowed to change my views? You can, Candace said. But don't fool the people walking the path you once needed help on. Brown James cleared his throat. We're heading to commercial in a moment. Candace cut in, her voice rising just slightly. I want to say this to the people watching at home. She turned to the camera, speaking directly to the nation. If you've ever been made to feel your experience doesn't matter, if someone tells you you're imagining things they don't want to face, don't let them erase you. Don't let them cover up the truth just because it's hard to look at. You matter, even if the people holding the mic pretend you don't. The audience held its breath. Jasmine struggled to find her rhythm, but the next few minutes only made things worse. As the show cut to commercial, social media erupted. Clips of the confrontation flooded timelines, one raw, unedited angle leaking from the control room. Candace's line, "You can't rewrite history just because the cameras are rolling," became a thunderbolt, spawning memes, hashtags, and heated discussions. Backstage, Jasmine paced the hallway, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Her assistant hovered, phone in hand, whispering updates. It's trending top 5 nationwide on X. One clip's already passed 4 million views. Jasmine didn't respond, her mind replaying the moment she lost control. In the green room, Candace sat calmly, her phone buzzing but untouched. She didn't need to check the reactions. She hadn't come to argue. She'd come to speak the truth, and the nation had listened. Within an hour, analysts weighed in. A neutral radio host from Oregon said, "No matter where you stand, Candace Owens showed up with facts and didn't flinch." Another posted on X, "Jasmine Crockett met an opponent who didn't play by her rules, and it showed." But the real impact came from ordinary people, teachers, barbers, students, parents, flooding comment sections. I've followed Jasmine for years, and this is the first time I've seen her rattled, one wrote. Candace didn't yell or dodge. She put the truth in front of us. Viewers dug into the Dallas lawsuit, unearthing archived articles, court filings, and old interviews. The evidence was clear. Jasmine had helped a client settle with the system, yet now preached personal responsibility. The contradiction stung. That night, Jasmine posted a statement on social media. I won't apologize for growing and encouraging accountability. Yes, I handled a lawsuit as a young attorney, and I moved past it by refusing to let it define me. But the comments weren't as supportive as before. Growing doesn't mean erasing, one read. You can't hide behind growth while denying the truth. Candace's post was simpler. A photo from the set, hands clasped, with 4 words, "Stand by the truth." No hashtags, no jabs. It spread like wildfire, shared with captions like "Strength isn't volume" and "The adult in the room." The debate's impact spilled into real life. In coffee shops from Chicago to Memphis, people debated the exchange. A woman at an Oklahoma City bus stop told a co-worker, Candace wasn't even angry, and that made it hit harder. In Washington, D.C., House members took notice, some texting discreetly, others calling. A staffer said, Candace didn't just win a debate. She showed accountability with poise. That's rare. A young black woman in Oakland posted a video, eyes wet but voice steady. I always felt uneasy when Jasmine said people like me were playing the race card. Hearing Candace bring up that lawsuit felt like someone finally spoke up. We're not crazy. We're not alone. The story resonated because it wasn't just about Jasmine or Candace. It was about the aunt who said toughen up, the teacher who brushed off complaints, the system that demanded silence. Candace gave people language to push back. A Memphis teacher wrote in her journal, "My students ask if racism still exists. Today, I'll show them the clip." Jasmine kept posting, dropping a podcast episode that night, accusing the network of a setup. But her fans were quieter, and outsiders weren't buying the spin. Candace didn't chase the spotlight. She went back to work, writing, speaking, engaging with the same calm she'd brought to the debate. In the weeks that followed, the clip kept circulating, not for its sensationalism, but for its resonance. A dad in Cleveland paused it to tell his daughter, "This is how you stand up without lowering yourself." A Tacoma debate coach asked her students, "When it's your turn to speak, who do you want to be?" No one chose volume. Candace didn't just expose Jasmine's contradiction, she exposed a broader truth. Erasing the past doesn't heal it. Silence isn't peace, it's avoidance. In a world of shouting matches, she showed that standing by the truth with poise could shift the temperature of a conversation, a community, a country. And that shift, quiet but real, was her true victory.